we've been pre-recording like our entire conference. I've been on probably 30 different, like I'm actually on every talk to make sure
Yeah,
they go
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So like the last 2 weeks, I've had 31-hour sessions like with different people. So yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Therapist channel. I'm Richard Simon. Today, I'm really pleased to be able to do the third part of our talk series with Harness. Again, I have Ravi with me, so we're going to do some intros in a minute. Just to remind everybody that we've so far been doing I think that our first talk was around kind of DevOps and DevOps terminology and things like that. Just a quick intro on that. We did a high-level sort of intro to the Harness solutions and kind of look at some of the products and features of that. And today we're going to be doing a demo. So let me introduce Ravi to you and just say hello to Ravi. Ravi, how are you doing?
Hey, doing well. Thanks, Richard, for having me on.
Pleasure. Excellent. So good to have you back again. Really looking forward to this third part of our series. Sadly, it is our third part and final part. But anyway, we might be able to get you back in persuade you to get back in for another talk in the future. Who knows? Right, excellent. So Ravi, just let's start with a quick intro to yourself and again, a quick intro to Harness, please.
Yeah, for sure. If you're just catching the third piece for the first time, I'm Ravi Lachhman. I'm a chief evangelist here at Harness. In my background, I had a lot of distributed systems development work. I was told I talk too much. Now I'm an evangelist. I focus on our ecosystem. And as a thought leader, I'm the person I used to make fun of at previous companies. You become what you make fun of. And so a little bit about Harness. We're a software delivery as a service platform. So what does it mean? So anything that you need to go from idea to production safely, we handle as a service. And so we handle continuous integration, continuous delivery. We have more recent products that are not out yet. So stay tuned. Around feature flags and also more advanced analytics that we can run. So those will be coming soon, but and also we help optimize costs. So anything that you need as an engineer to operate an application, we definitely provide that as a service for you.
Fantastic. Yeah, and obviously we covered quite a lot of that in the previous talk. So hopefully viewers can actually go and have a look at the rest of those talks on the same channel. And by the way, evangelist, that is what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to talk a lot. So,
Preach.
I think that's exactly, preaching, exactly.
I told my mother I'm a televangelist and she believes me, so I marry people in software. Didn't correct her.
Close enough. Right, so without further ado, let's dive into the demo.
So we're going to be diving into the Harness platform. So currently, this is our current generation rendition of the platform. And so basically looking at the Harness platform, we can handle all sorts of things. We have a continuous integration product. We also have an open source continuous integration product. But jumping into the screen here, we kind of have an enterprise dashboard saying, hey, how many deployments are we doing? What's the most active? Where are the services going? So really helping you understand what you have in your enterprise corpus, right? So what's deployed, what needs to be built, and et cetera. Now, there's a piece of it I'm not going to show at the beginning is the artifact build. There's a few versions that we have. So you can use our product or our open source product or our commercial product. We plug very easily into Jenkins or Concourse or Circle CI. And so here I have a build that was kicked off a little while ago. This is our drone product, or actually Drone Cloud, but not going to kick it off from here. So let's take a look at a few things. We'll get into a more technical part of the demo, and then we'll get into some more of the business stuff of the demo. So let's go ahead and kick off a deployment. So if you come to the left of the screen where it says deployments, we're going to actually be starting a new deployment. So we're going to be doing our particular Harness demo application. So very nicely named, and we're going to be running a CD pipeline. So we scroll down here. We have lots of demo pipelines. So basically, this is going to be prompting me to deploy something, right? So I'm playing an end user currently, and so keep this in the back of your mind. If you didn't have any experience building this pipeline probably would have taken you 40 minutes as an admin to build. But we'll see how how complex it can be, but again, how easy it is to use at the same time. So I'm going to head select the tag. It's going to be saying, you know what, ooh, we're up to 81 now. Let's go send only notifications to me so I don't blast my coworkers. And so basically, we're going through an entire deployment pipeline from dev all the way to production. Now, a hint, this pipeline is designed to fail, so I'll talk through the failure, but there's a lot of, let's say, orthogonal concerns that was going through here. So a couple of things. So looking from dev to production, there's a lot of expertise in this pipeline here. One thing you want to do as, let's say, a platform engineer or as a software engineer, you want to make sure you support innovation, but also you have control. And so what's going on here is the rule sets are getting stricter and stricter and stricter as we march towards prod. And so focusing on dev, let's went pretty quickly. So focusing on dev here, basically this is a Kubernetes application. This is a Docker image that's being deployed. And so basically we're making some very quick checks in dev. So dev is meant to execute multiple times. We're tying everything together though in an automated fashion. And basically the bread and butter of the Harness application is automation, and also automation by convention. So you would assume there's a lot of iteration going on in dev. And so with this particular pipeline here, I know it paused in approval. It did a lot. It actually deployed to a lower environment. Also, it did menial tasks that you might like or might not like. It actually created a Jira ticket to kind of track what's going on. I remember I used to work for an investment bank. As a developer or dev lead, I use Jira. Our particular infrastructure team used ServiceNow. I spent half an hour on deployment, copying and pasting between the two platforms. Like that's what I did. But we'll get to that in a second. And so kind of after we pass that, we go into QA. Similar, we're doing a rolling deployment here, but now we're starting to tighten the screws a little bit, right? So we're able to start building in additional verifications. And so the Harness platform is actually pretty intelligent. It'll start to learn that, hey, you know what, these are the confidence markers that you need to deploy. And we'll actually dig into that at the final stage. So we do the most advanced type of analysis towards the end. But again, Harness is able to orchestrate, you know what, we need to deploy to another environment. We might be running some sort of perf test here with JMeter. We might be running some sort of regression test here. And also, we're tying that all together in a pipeline, right? So this is modeled kind of in a modeler. This is the steps that you'll be taking, you know, as some sort of release engineer. And we're giving really the end user that power. Now, coming back to a Jira approval. So how this particular pipeline was designed was that there's lots of patterns you can apply. But this one is something I call the button push pattern. I actually wrote a book called CI/CD Pipeline Patterns. I went through probably 100 of our customers during interview processes saying, hey, what do you typically like to do? There's an irony in this pattern. It's the irony is that automating everything but the button to push is actually very difficult. You're either completely automated or you're completely manual. And automating everything but the push button is actually very difficult. Here we actually did that fairly easily. We have that this particular artifact or artifacts or services past our dev and QA stage with the rigor. Now it's time to get it approved in Jira, right? So someone pretend this is a bank, right? You have to look at it. So let me log into Jira. And this Jira ticket was something that was written automatically for us at the start of the pipeline. Very funny. Rishi's actually our CTO, so I'm pretty sure that every time that we run this demo, poor Rishi has another item.
Tons of emails.
Yeah, Rishi knows when we're running the demo. Yeah, but how we want to go about progressing this, we can actually say, you know what, we passed this. Like I'm Rishi. Robbie, but I pretend I'm Rishi, our CTO. I approve of this change. And so we're going ahead and mark that as approved. Now, depending on where we are in the polling window, this might take 60 seconds for us. But I'll pause there. Richard, do you have it? This is so far so good, making sense what we're running here in the pipeline.
Definitely, yeah. I think I'm starting to see kind of the automation flow already, and I think that's, as you said, that's already saving a lot of time for devs, definitely.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. And so kind of the next step would be this, going back to the part of the story that this is very real for me. When I worked at an investment bank, I had two ticketing systems. And so basically based on the Jira approval here, it's actually going to be propagating to ServiceNow automatically. So another ticket is being written by an API. And since we approved it in Jira, it's approved in ServiceNow. So we wouldn't have to, we can skip this step, right? We don't have to go into ServiceNow and approve the change. And now we're deploying to prod. This was designed to fail. So let me walk you through what's going on in production here. So if this is your first time deploying something, deploying something is easy the first time because there's no users, right? Like you can just rip and replace, in Kubernetes land, you can run a recreate strategy. So it drops all the pods and spins them back up or starts them all at once. But realistically, there's users in your system, right? Like if there wasn't any users, what's the point, right, or other connections and whatnot. And so here we're actually deploying via a canary. And so a canary in concept is easy. It's an incremental release, right? So there's the gold canary in the coal mine. If the canary passes out in the mine, well, there's toxic fumes in there. Yeah. In software land, it's, you shift a percent of the traffic and then you shift another set of percents and then you keep shifting. Yeah. So the canary version replaces the stable version, right? So in this one, this is a two-phase canary, so 50-50 if it passes. But in concept, it's easy. In practice, it's very difficult because there's a canary is you're deploying multiple times, right? So not only from a technical standpoint, you're moving things around and making sure that if you had to do this by hand, you're doing additives, deletes, additive destruction events in Kubernetes. So you're removing the old pods and putting the new pods in and shifting the traffic over. Now, the hard part is deciding, well, was it successful? Do we, the quote unquote judgment call of a particular release is that, hey, did the canary succeed? Or any release, right? If you did all at one time, like in the blue-green format, did it make sense, right? And so we can role play. Richard and I could be in the same team, and Richard's the more senior engineer. Richard has all that tribal knowledge. Maybe pretend I'm brand new on the team. I don't know what success looks like. It deployed, right? Yeah, okay, it started, sure. But historically, my argument for one of the biggest parts of the learning curve as a software engineer, if you have deployment responsibility, or if you're under you operate it, you run it type of model, is knowing what's normal. You don't, there's a lot of tribal knowledge learning what's normal. And the Harness platform, core to this is our bread and butter with the word du jour, AI, ML, artificial intelligence, machine learning, is that we're able to learn about the applications and so tell you what's normal. Because imagine we were DevOps engineers at another place like Lloyd's or something big in the UK. We support 500 or 600 apps, each one of us, right? Like you and I support lots of apps. And so how do you, again, you don't know what's normal. Well, Harness has an ever-watching eye because it actually learns what's normal. And also it takes in markers that we monitor for and also polls other systems. So for example, if you have an APM solution or observability solution, we're pulling in metrics and kind of saying, what, here in this particular version, we're using Datadog. So use these particular pieces of software for what they're good for, right? Like Datadog has, a particular way of measuring web transactions. AppDynamics has their business transaction, right? Regression. And so we can basically say, hey, based on historics, there's something risky going on, or even just more nefarious here. But Datadog, right, saying, hey, based on historics, there's a lot of deviation happening between the previous version and this version. Yeah. And the Harness platform actually mimics your best your engineers, right? So you and I would make a judgment call saying this failed. If we had all the data, we would say roll back. And this keeps going on and on, right? So now this version is kind of stacked. For demonstration purposes, you wouldn't be having 9 different pieces of verification, but
I hope not.
One of taking a look at the difference between hey, we're able to analyze the APM data, we're able to analyze the log data. I always like this because it looks like an eye chart, right? So what this is basically doing is looking for log messages or log items that are different. So there's a whole talk I give about the AI ML algorithms that the product uses inside. And so, for example, Rich and I might say, what? Every time the application server starts up, we get this exception. So it's a known event. It's actually funny. In my very first role out of university, I worked for the federal government for IBM. And I remember when Webster ND started, we had hundreds of warnings. And I was like, are you sure it started? To the team lead, she's like, yeah, it started. Don't worry. We get these ND exceptions, network deploy exceptions all the time. And it's like, yeah, university, I would have gotten bad marks if I had these type of messages in any sort of sample. I mean, it was my foray into professional software engineering that, we don't know sometimes. So, but we're able to filter that out, saying, hey, you know what? Every time the application starts, you get these warnings. If you get this is just an oversimplified version. If you get a fatal, hey, you know what? This is an anomalous event, and then not a risk might be information, right? And we're able to filter that out pretty seamlessly. Since it did fail, we actually rolled back the version of the application by convention. So because there was failures in these markings, or most people would say, hey, because of this, we should roll back. The platform took care of that rollback automatically, so there was no interruption to the end user, which is pretty fantastic. But I'll take a pause there, Rich, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like the obviously, I like the way it's laid out. So that's a really good kind of very clear sort of visual indicator of kind of where things are flowing. The previous section that you showed, where you actually had sort of those lack of a better word, kind of the human gates, where kind of human decisions need to be made between kind of getting the approval, moving on to generating a ticket with ServiceNow, etc. Now here you're kind of able to again integrate with kind of all the popular sort of platforms, whether they're APM or they're sort of observability platforms, or just kind of normal event management platforms. And I think that's really good, and you're able to actually demonstrate all of those and click on all of those depending on who the customer is and what he's trying to do and what they're trying to do. I think that's great, and it's again kind of shows the the ease of use of the platform, which is fantastic.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So also this might look pie in the sky, but this probably would have taken an admin like 45 minutes to create this, right? Like less than an hour. And if I would have walked into any firm, who does a deployment like this, you would immediately be in the top 5% of people I ever talk to, right? Because the level of sophistication that this has for safety and for also ease of use to the end user, it's kind of combining complexity and ease of use all into one, right? So we model how the best do it and kind of give that to you as a service. Kind of changing gears now, another part of the platform I want to show off is cloud cost management. And so this is a newer module. Actually, a year ago, today, this week, we actually released this module for the first time, and it definitely got more mature. And so there's this concept called FinOps, right? So how there's DevOps. I give you a personal corp. So earlier in middle of my career, my nemesis used to be operations folks. I used to do things like drop SE tables, open up all the IP ports, because I didn't know any better as a software engineer. Hey, it's not my problem to figure out how they communicate. Let someone else do that. So my nemesis for a long time, or nemesises, were operations or system engineers. Now, as a manager and director, kind of stepping up into my career, I actually have budget. And so my nemesis now is finance, right? They might come back and say, Ravi, I actually got this talk before that, hey, you're a quarter ahead of your cloud burn. What's going on? These are real conversations that I have. And so the concept of FinOps, how DevOps broke down silos with developers and system engineers. FinOps is breaking down silos from technology practitioners and the folks in finance. So we actually had a very interesting Linux Foundation webinar on this concept, and also we actually brought our head of finance who would ask me these questions to say why it was important. But I digress. The Harness platform has a new module called CCM, or Cloud Cost Management. And basically with Cloud Cost Management, it's going back to, hey, how can we optimize what we're doing? So optimization could be in terms of spend or in terms of density, right? So it's engineers, we naturally want to optimize things. And so here's actually what CCM looks like. So it's actually monitoring all of our workloads that we have. And so without necessarily tagging anything, they can do a few things from the same AI ML that we have. The rest of the platform, we turned it towards cost management. So a few things might be, hey, given a certain amount of workloads, it actually might give us recommendations like, hey, based on a certain workload, what do you make these particular tunings in your resource limits or request, in your Kubernetes manifest, which is pretty cool. It actually has actual data that will show hey, this per quartile, this goes back to linear algebra, which I'm not good at, but this particular quartile,
I was never good at maths either.
Yeah, I have to use my calculator, but I believe it. These maths are correct here, based on certain thresholds and quartiles. these are what your resource limits should be, right? Or if you want to be more aggressive, or you want to have like certain optimizations, you can kind of tune it based on actual usage, saying, hey, this person, or probably me, overcommitted by 10x, right, or 9x at this point. And so you can actually have a savings there. So if we take a look back at the platform, let's take a look at
Sorry,
how
Ravi, just sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah.
just on that point, is there kind of within that sort of flags that you can do as well? So as you said, if somebody kind of exceeds their limit or spend or whatever, does the platform give you sort of the ability to, sort of generate events and flags and stuff like that?
Oh, yeah. We have this concept called budgets. So like you can actually set up budgets. And so it can actually alert you. And budgets are really, really fascinating because you don't actually have to, like you can make a proactive budget. So you don't actually have to exceed the threshold. It can be that you're trending a certain way. So it might say, hey, in the next 5 days, you will exceed the budget, which is pretty fantastic, right? It'll even more math for you and I. It will forecast out saying,
that's what I needed at my age.
I know, right? It makes it easy based on your forecasted spend. You're 6 days out of exceeding. Day 6 you will exceed. Let's take a look at what it actually looks like. So if we take a look at a particular workload, right? So we dig into the workloads that have been deployed into Kubernetes, we can actually see that there's certain cost trends that are increasing or decreasing. We can just take a look at one, let's say that increased 55%. Like, hey, there's ways for optimizing it. We can actually dig into it and take a look at the actuals versus usage, or the requested versus actuals, right? And even more so with the Harness platform, because we're deploying, we can actually catch the event that did this, right? Saying, hey, there was a big spike in usage between here and here. So we can actually see like what on earth in the manifest has changed, that caused this cost spike. And if you want to go back and revert, you can use the Harness platform again to just rerun the particular tunings that you implemented. And so, yeah, this is basically our cloud cost management tool in a nutshell. And that concludes the demonstration portion of the conversation. Any questions or any pointers?
No, I think that's really good. I mean, there's obviously a huge more amount that we could probably go through, but probably not going to be able to cover all of that. Certainly not do everything sort of justice in this one. And I kind of really wanted to do a very sort of quick go walk through of the platform, and I guess viewers can kind of really go to to your website and look at more of the content. As you guys, like I said, I think before, you've published quite a lot of, done a lot of webinars, lots of content out there. You've jumped on a lot of different sort of conferences and things like that. So plenty more there. I really just kind of wanted to get a sample, and I think that's great. That covers quite a lot of the main areas, and really the important thing to that I wanted to kind of demonstrate was the ease of use, the point and click sort of approach to the whole thing, and as you said, the time saving that this offers you, and then with extra sort of additions like the cost module and things like that, that kind of really starts enhancing the Harness platform and putting it above and beyond what you might expect from a sort of a standard automation platform for CI/CD and pipelines. Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I think the rest of the content, like we said, is going to be on the Harness website. So evaluations, kind of community editions, things like that, would kind of viewers and customers kind of go to that to your website for that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like even if you're a student, you don't have to work in any organization. We're here to empower anybody in their journey to deploy better. So we have, if you want to take a look at Harness, you can go to harness.io. You can sign up for a trial of the platform. Now, the trial will give you all the enterprise features for 14 days. It will downgrade itself to our free forever version, which are a community edition. You can still deploy things, right? But maybe not at the enterprise scale, or definitely not at the enterprise scale.
Sure.
After 14 days, and you can just kind of keep it and learn about it. And we have more substantial open source offerings coming out. So currently Drone is leading the pack, so drone.io. You can leverage drone for free, or you can get an enterprise edition again from us. Also, we have a a few more products coming out. So we have our big unscripted conference coming out. So there'll be much more announcements, but we have a enterprise continuous integration product that will be coming out. It's currently in beta, but it'll be more closer to GA around our conference. And then also we're introducing a feature flag product as part of the platform and continuing to enhance the overall user experience
Fantastic.
with the enhanced UI.
Great. Well, yeah, I mean, lots more to see, obviously, and lots more to look at and play with. You guys have a community on your website as well, so viewers can actually go to that. Certainly, they can backtrack into the previous talks that you and I have done as part of this sort of 3-part series as well, for the intros and kind of do a sort of a soft introduction into sort of DevOps, DevSecOps, and things like that. Look at the solutions that you guys kind of offer, sort of a high-level view. I think that we did that as a second part, and obviously this one for the for the demos and things, and lots more, as you said, on your website. So Ravi, I think it only leaves me to thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate you kind of coming on and doing these 3 parts. We've really enjoyed it. I've learned a huge amount, as I always do with all these talks. And yeah, I hope to be able to do something with you guys going forward. Maybe after the conference, we can maybe do a sort of a catch up, a roundup of of the conference and maybe highlights and things like that. I think that would be quite cool to do. So yeah, just leaves me to thank you very much, and I wish you much continued success.
Thanks so much for having me on. Cheers.
Thank you for watching this talk. Ravi from Harness has kindly offered to provide viewers with some Harness swag, as t-shirts, stickers, and so on. All you have to do is request a demo of the Harness platform at harness.io/contact-sales. Go through the demo with the good folks at Harness to get a tour of their great solution, and state that the Cloud Therapist sent you. If you do that, Harness will note your details and send you some free swag. Couldn't be simpler to get your hands on some exclusive t-shirts and stuff like that from the guys at Harness. Thanks again for watching. Hope you enjoyed this series of talks. If you have any comments and suggestions, we're always happy to hear from you. And please comment on the video, like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.